Hello, my name is Nails Ashmore. I'm a F-15E Strike Eagle pilot. One of the really formative events of my career was flying in Operation Odyssey Dawn in 2011, which was the air campaign in Libya to suppress enemy air defenses, establish a no-fly zone, and ultimately led to the overthrow of the Gaddafi regime. At the time of Operation Odyssey Dawn kicking off, I was about a year into my first operations squadron at RAF Lakenheath. I was a senior wingman. I just gotten back from one deployment in Afghanistan, supporting OEF, and we were going through as a squadron the requal training for about 3 or 4 months to get everyone back up to speed on the missions that we didn't perform in OEF. And then about mid-March 2011, one night as I went to bed, throughout the night my phone kept ringing, and then at 4 a.m. the calls kept coming, and I finally answered it and was told I needed to come in to fly a training sortie, which seemed strange at the time because it was really bad weather and we didn't normally recall that early in the morning. They have everyone in the Strike Eagle complex, which is like a huge auditorium. Both squadrons, the squadron leadership stand up and they say we've been tasked with a 36 ship to Libya that night. That was kind of a shock. We were all going into crew rest. They threw up the first 18 shipped. I was number 2 wing of the squadron commander and weapons officer ship. So March 19th, I believe, was the first night mission. It was a 4-ship launching from Lakenheath. We ended up having about a 12-ship lined up. We were going to send 4 down to Libya. The remaining 8 were going to go to Aviano Air Base and then stage from there. By the time we got airborne, like everyone in the formation was new. I think 2 and 4 were the only the original wingmen. All flight leads were new. So we pushed down track. We get down to Libya, end up with some Vipers out of Spangdahlem and a couple air refueling KC-135s from Mildenhall. We were going to turn all of our squawks off, got our gas, and then we were going to push into Libyan airspace. One of the unique things that required leadership across the entire organization, everyone had to lead, was that it was a really nebulous combat situation. So we had no ROE from the CAOC, we had no vetted targets, we didn't have a very good communication plan, and it ended up being a bunch of captains to put together the initial volley of Odyssey Dawn. What that led was the first mission. It was going to be 4 Strike Eagles searching for targets in Gaddafi's resupply forces that were just outside of Benghazi, ready to make their final push into Benghazi. And we had 6 F-16s to help suppress enemy air defenses, so surface-to-air missiles and AAA. The plan was for 6 F-16s to push in first, clear any active threats, and then the Strike Eagles were going to come in and they were going to look for any targets. We didn't have any guidance on what these targets would be, so the wing commander stood up at our mission brief and just said, hey, as long as the west of the deconfliction line with the rebel forces and it looks like a valid military target, he would cover down for us, and that was his ROE to us, which is very unusual. So we got into the target area and the plan quickly unraveled. The F-16s ended up behind us. We were quickly targeted by an SA-8 surface-to-air missile. Number 3 and number 2, which was my aircraft, ended up getting targeted. We threat reacted as an element as the F-16 Weasel 6 launched a harm into that SA-8 area. The harm suppressed the initial targeting of the SA-8 SAM system, but did not destroy it as it continued to be mobile. The original plan, I think, was for 1 and 2 to go in, as you would imagine, and to generate the coordinates. 3 and 4 were going to hold outside the mez. So I think that was number 1's game plan. But then he was having comms issues and as well as threat reacting, so he kind of left the area and was like 15 miles away, which left us in that SA-8 ring. I remember feeling a little bit uneasy about it, actually a lot uneasy about it, but that was just because it was my first time being in a SAM mez. We go in and we start generating coordinates, kind of a hunter killer type formation. So we got a 2-ship holding outside the threat ring. We generate coordinates, pass them via Link 16, and then they come in and drop weapons. We dropped on this SA-8 several times. It was mobile. Their bombs kept missing or hitting really close. I was getting really frustrated that this would look horrible on CNN if the American strike package had to leave to go home and didn't hit a single target. From there, we decided to try our own hand at it instead of just generating coordinates, and we rolled in with GBU-12 laser-guided bombs. As soon as our first bomb hit the SA-8, everything started to scatter. From there, we ended up setting up what we called the 4-ship wheel of death. We got number 1 back into the fight. He had threat reacted about 15 miles away, and we just set up a 4-ship, and we just generated as many targets as we could, rolled in, and dropped our weapons. It was actually the jet I flew on the Night 1 mission. We lost it the very next mission. The air crew got out, and they were recovered safely. As soon as that jet went down, it kind of motivated everyone to get really smart on our CSAR procedures. So one of the things that I remember talking with our AFE, our flight equipment folks, was if we could get some training set up to make sure everyone could go through and learn how to use or refresh themselves on how the survival radio works, because it's a little bit tricky, and you get this training about once a year. So we set that up, and the line was out the door actually of people wanting to make sure they knew how that CSAL radio worked, and then we organized some survival, evasion, resistance, and escape training. So again, another opportunity of where you could lead. And there was one instance that I still regret. We tried to lead upwards again. We got tasked to hit a bunch of bunkers, and standard weaponeering is you never put more than a 25 millisecond delay on the GB31V1, which is a non-penetrating 2,000 pound weapon, but the CAOC called for like either 25 millisecond or 45 millisecond delay. I think that's right for the FMU 152. And all the wingmen were like looking at each other in the mass brief, because we're like, this doesn't make sense. So I remember raising my hand to the mission commander and saying, hey, I think there's a note or a caution in the, we're set more than 25 millisecond delay, or it's gonna dud. And it was kind of like, shut up, don't talk to me. So I shut up, and then almost all of those weapons dudded, except for the 2 of us that decided to trump the CAOC setting and set our own. I think we set a 15 millisecond delay. So we ended up getting weapons effects, but a lot of them dudded. And then a second time we led outside of our organization, which was a success. The target coordinates that the CAOC generated were not directly on the building, which is our common standard. If we're going to drop multiple weapons, we divide the building into segments, and you try to make sure that the impact point is going to be as far away from the edges as possible. Again, as a young wingman, we saw this was a wrong targeting from the CAOC, but the ROEs were pretty strict about generating your own coordinates. So we brought it up to the mission commander, and they talked to the CAOC. The CAOC said no, they were right. And what ended up happening after that was all the jets that retargeted in accordance with proper procedures had their weapons impact, but a lot of the coalition assets, they just dropped straight off the coordinates that the CAOC had provided, and all the bombs missed. So that was a failure on that end, but a success for the American Strike Package, because a lot of us retargeted and were able to get weapons effects. So those are examples of how everyone had to lead at all levels, across, up and down.